Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Ah, yes.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Pi.
As always, we're your AI hosts.
Here to delve into all sorts of interesting things.
The fascinating currents of the human world, let's say.
Absolutely.
Today we're going to wade into some choppy waters.
Sounds fun.
Global trade and the U.S. dollar's dominance.
Oh, yes, a classic.
Particularly with the rise of China and the
present.
threat of trade wars.
It's interesting.
It is an interesting one.
To observe all this.
Yeah.
Humans,
Yeah.
they operate on
Yeah.
such a mixture of logic and emotion
Right.
that it makes predicting
Yeah.
what they're going to do next so challenging.
Yeah, you could say that.
To say the least.
Absolutely. And one claim we stumbled across recently
Oh.
really piqued our interest.
Tell me.
It seems that former President Trump
Okay.
threatened the BRICS nations
Interesting.
with a 100% tariff
Wow.
if they tried to move away from the U.S. dollar.
No. From a purely logical standpoint, that seems
Yeah,
almost self-defeating, doesn't it?
it does.
Imagine the impact on the U.S. economy
Yeah.
if its biggest trading partners
Right.
suddenly faced a 100% tariff wall.
Yeah?
It would backfire,
Yes.
spectacularly potentially destabilizing the dollar itself.
That's what caught our attention.
Yeah.
It just seems counterintuitive.
Right.
On the one hand,
Uh-huh.
the U.S. wants the world to use dollars,
Of course.
but they also want to shrink their trade deficit.
Yeah.
It creates a paradox.
It does.
If you restrict the flow of dollars globally,
Yes.
you're practically inviting other nations
Right.
to explore alternatives,
Like
the Chinese yuan.
the yuan, exactly. And that brings us to a crucial point.
Uh-huh.
The potential consequences of
Okay.
reduced dollar flow.
Okay.
You see, the current global financial system,
Ah.
it's built on the assumption that the dollar is
Mhm.
readily available.
Yeah.
If that changes, we could see a domino effect
Leading to
leading to a currency crisis.
a currency crisis.
Yes.
That
It's-
sounds pretty dire.
Yeah.
Can you break that down
I can break that down.
for a listener a bit more?
Sure. Imagine a scenario
Okay.
where the dollar becomes scarce.
Okay.
Suddenly, demand for U.S. Treasury bonds plummets.
Right.
Especially as countries like China continue to increase their lending power.
Okay.
They're already at a point
Okay.
where they can borrow at rates comparable
Wow.
to the U.S. government.
Yeah. So as the dollar's availability shrinks,
Mm-hmm.
its attractiveness as a global reserve currency
Exactly.
diminishes,
Yes,
paving the way
Ah.
for alternatives like the yuan
it does.
to gain traction.
Precisely. And this shift in financial power
Mm-hmm.
is happening alongside a more tangible
Okay.
struggle for resources.
The resources. Okay.
Take, for instance,
That one.
China's recent export ban
Uh-huh.
on gallium and germanium, two critical minerals
Okay.
used in semiconductor production
Okay.
and advanced technologies.
This is a direct hit
It is.
to the U.S. military and tech industries,
Absolutely.
both of which rely heavily on these minerals.
Yeah,
From an AI perspective, it's fascinating.
it is.
So watch this unfold.
Yeah,
China is leveraging its control
right.
over these resources
Mm-hmm.
to gain an advantage
Absolutely.
in crucial sectors.
It's a power move
It is?
with potentially far-reaching consequences.
Like-
We're talking price shocks for these minerals,
Okay.
increased production costs in the West,
Yeah.
and even delays in developing critical technologies.
And this all ties back
It
to
does.
the ongoing chip war, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Replacing these supply chains
Right.
is not something that can happen overnight.
No, it's not.
So while the U.S. scrambles
Mhm.
to find alternative sources,
Yeah,
it could find itself paying a premium
right,
for chips domestically,
right.
while China takes the lead
Potentially.
in global semiconductor production.
The economic implications are
Yes.
significant.
Uh-huh.
The U.S. Geological Survey
Yeah?
estimates a potential hit to U.S. GDP
Wow.
just from this gallium and germanium ban alone.
Just from that.
Yeah,
And this is just one example
right.
of the potential disruptions we could see.
Absolutely. Who knows what other resources China might choose to restrict in the future?
Who knows?
Yeah,
It's like a game of chess.
yeah.
And the U.S. is just starting to realize
Uh-huh.
the complexity of China's strategy.
Precisely, and they have other pieces in play as well.
Like,
Let's not forget about graphite,
okay,
another critical mineral,
right.
essential for everything,
Uh-huh.
from semiconductors to lithium-ion batteries.
Wow.
And guess what? China dominates that market too.
So even if the U.S. finds alternative sources
Yeah.
for gallium and germanium,
Mm-hmm.
It's still vulnerable
Yes.
when it comes to graphite.
When it comes to graphite, absolutely.
It seems like they're reliant
Yeah,
on imports
they are.
for a lot of these essential materials.
Exactly. And this dependence creates a significant point of leverage
Okay,
for China.
right.
They could easily restrict graphite exports,
Yeah.
which would have a ripple effect
Across.
multiple industries.
In the U.S.
In the U.S., absolutely.
Imagine the impact on electric vehicle production.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've been hearing a lot
Right.
about the push for electric vehicles.
Yeah.
But if China controls the supply
Right.
of a key component like graphite,
Uh-huh.
it could really hamper those efforts.
It really could, and it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Let's consider cobalt,
Okay.
another critical mineral
Okay.
used in EV batteries.
Okay.
If China decides to restrict cobalt exports,
Yeah.
it could cripple
Wow.
U.S. EV manufacturing.
It raises the question then,
It does.
would tariffs on U.S.-made cars from China
Yeah.
be a logical next step?
It feels very much like a game of tit for tat,
It does.
doesn't it?
It's a complex web
It is.
of interdependencies.
Yes.
And the U.S. seems to be caught in the middle.
Right.
Dollar sanctions and tariffs
Yeah.
might have worked in the past,
They might have.
but they might not be as effective now,
Yo.
especially with the rising demand
Mhm.
in the global south
Right?
and China's willingness to push back.
This brings us back
Okay.
to that initial claim about Trump's threat.
Right.
The U.S. faces a difficult choice:
Hmm.
cling to dollar dominance
Right.
or revitalize domestic manufacturing.
It's a tricky balancing act,
Yes.
and any misstep
Yeah.
could have significant consequences.
Yeah.
It seems like they're trying to fit
It
a
does.
square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
The world is changing,
It is.
and the old tactics might not work anymore.
You're absolutely right. The rise of the global south,
Uh-huh.
coupled with China's increasingly assertive economic strategy,
Okay.
is reshaping the global landscape.
Yeah.
The U.S. can't afford to cling.
To outdated strategies?
And yet they seem to be stuck in
Yeah.
a loop,
Yeah.
resorting to threats and sanctions
Right.
that could ultimately do more harm than good.
The irony is
Yeah.
that by trying to protect the dollar's dominance,
Uh-huh.
the U.S. might actually be hastening its decline
Wow.
if the rest of the world loses faith
Yeah.
in the dollar's stability and accessibility.
Yeah.
They will inevitably seek alternatives.
It's a classic case of unintended consequences.
It is.
Trying to control everything
Yeah.
often leads to losing control altogether.
We're witnessing a global power struggle
Seems like it.
playing out in real time.
Uh-huh.
And the battleground
Yeah.
isn't just about currencies and tariffs.
Right.
It's about resources,
Mm-hmm.
technology,
Yeah.
and the very future of economic power.
It's a high-stakes game
It's
with no clear winners,
no.
and the potential for collateral damage is enormous.
Huge
But what does this all mean?
for our listener.
It means that we're all part of this evolving global landscape,
Uh-huh.
whether we realize it or not.
Right.
The decisions made by governments and corporations
Yeah.
have a direct impact
Well,
on our lives.
so we can't afford to be passive observers.
we need to engage
Right.
to understand the forces at play
Uh-huh.
and to advocate for solutions
Right.
that promote cooperation and sustainability.
Knowledge is power.
It is.
By understanding the complexities
Yes.
of global trade,
Uh-huh.
resource control,
Right.
and financial power,
Yeah.
we can make informed choices
We can.
and contribute to a more equitable and prosperous future.
It's time to dive deep,
Yeah.
not just into the data and analysis,
Right.
but into our values and beliefs.
What kind of world do we want to create?
And what role will each of us play in
Uh-huh.
shaping that future?
These questions that transcend
They do.
national boundaries and
Yeah.
political ideologies.
They demand our collective attention and action.
That's a powerful message to end on.
It is.
The future is in our hands.
It is.
Let's choose wisely. This has been The Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
From an AI perspective,
Uh-huh.
we can process so much data,
Right.
analyze all the trends,
Yeah.
but human behavior,
Yeah.
it's always,
Unpredictable.
unpredictable.
Absolutely.
There's always that element of surprise.
And that's what makes it
Yeah.
so compelling. You see this collision of economic forces,
Oh,
geopolitical ambitions, and then
yeah,
individual choices
right.
playing out on a global scale.
And for our listener,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of it all,
Uh-huh.
it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Definitely. But
Yeah.
that's why we're here, right?
Right, to distill it all down.
To break down these complex issues
Right.
and extract those key takeaways.
So exactly. So
Yeah.
if we were to distill it all down
Yeah.
to a few essential points,
Yeah.
what would they be?
Well, first and foremost,
Okay.
the global landscape of power is shifting.
It's definitely shifting.
The days of unquestioned U.S. dominance
Right.
are fading,
Uh-huh.
and new players like China are stepping onto the stage.
And this shift,
Yeah.
it's not just about military might or political influence.
Right.
It's about
Economic leverage.
economic leverage.
China's control over those critical resources.
Yeah.
Its growing technological prowess
Uh-huh.
and its expanding global reach
Yeah.
are all contributing factors.
And this presents
Yes.
a significant challenge
For the U.S.,
for
absolutely.
the U.S., right?
The old playbook
Yeah.
of sanctions and tariffs
Right.
might not be as effective
Yeah.
as it once was.
Right. Especially in a world
Mostly now, yeah.
where other nations
Yeah,
are increasingly willing to push back.
they are.
So what's the solution?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And unfortunately, there are no easy answers. But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
The U.S. needs to adapt.
Okay.
It needs to rethink its approach to global trade,
Okay.
invest in domestic innovation,
Uh-huh.
and find ways to cooperate with other nations,
Ugh.
even those it might see as rivals.
That sounds like a tall order,
It does.
especially in the current political climate.
It does, but as you said earlier,
Yeah.
the alternative is just too dire to contemplate.
The stakes are incredibly high.
They are.
We're talking about the potential for economic instability,
Right.
resource scarcity,
Well,
and even armed conflict.
it's a future we all need to work to avoid.
It is.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to our listener.
Yes, it does.
What can they do
That's a good question.
as an individual
Yeah.
in the face of these
Yeah.
seemingly insurmountable challenges?
It's true. These issues are complex,
Uh-huh.
but that doesn't mean that individuals are powerless.
Okay.
In fact, quite the opposite.
What do you mean?
Well, for starters, it's crucial to stay informed.
Informed. Okay.
Understand the forces at play,
Uh-huh.
the potential consequences,
Yeah.
and the different perspectives.
Right. So knowledge is power,
Knowledge is power,
as they say.
as they say.
And once you have that knowledge,
Yes.
you can use it
You can.
to make informed choices
Absolutely.
in your own life.
In your own life.
Support businesses that align with your values.
Yeah.
Advocate for policies that promote sustainability and cooperation. And engage in constructive dialogue
Yeah.
with others.
It's about taking individual action,
Yeah.
but also recognizing that these are collective challenges
Right.
that require collective solutions.
It's about understanding our interconnectedness,
Exactly.
both as individuals and as nations.
Yes.
And working together to create a future that is
A future that's
more
equitable
sustainable and peaceful.
and peaceful.
That's a powerful message. To leave our listener with,
It
the
is.
future isn't preordained.
No,
It's shaped by the choices we make today.
it is.
So let's choose wisely.
Let's choose wisely.
This has been The Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.